What are the best Star Trek The Next Generation characters? Today we're going to go through and rank them all. Obviously, S means superior, that means the best, the elite of the TNG characters, and then of course we have A, B, C, D, F. Now obviously this is not every single character in TNG, but this is the majority of the main characters, and we're just going to go through and simply rank them. But please keep in mind, this video is super subjective. These are my opinions, and this is how I feel about these characters. You can feel completely different about them, and that's cool. That's all part of the fun about loving fictional things and doing rankings and lists like this. All right, let's get into it. First up, we have Wesley Crusher. Now, this poor character gets more hate than probably anything else in Star Trek. Now, I don't hate Wesley. There is times he can be a little annoying, but when I watched TNG, I never understood the just utmost hate that this poor character has. I mean, people truly do hate this character, and I just don't see it. I like Will Wheaton, and his character is his character. You know, I didn't think there was that many times where it was just like, oh my God, Crusher. I mean, there was a few times, don't get me wrong, but the majority of the time, he just felt like one of the crew. He was this young. So I'm gonna give Crusher a solid C. Don't love him, don't hate him. I'm sure you're going to disagree, and that's okay. Next up, we have Counselor Troi. Now, I know there are people out there that thinks her character did not do a lot and didn't do enough to really be part of the crew and so forth, but I disagree. I truly do like all the characters in this show. There's not really one that I truly hate, other than, of course, some bad guys. But I do like Counselor Troi. I thought she brought enough to the show. I thought she was a true core piece of the Enterprise, and if she wasn't there, it'd be weird. She is a integral part of the Next Generation, and if anyone thinks differently, well, I just think you're wrong. Again, this is, of course, you know, all opinions and stuff, but she was an integral part of the ship and the show, and I gotta give Counselor Troi a solid B. I think her character is solid. She may not have super moments to herself, but she's always a solid character, and she never really disappoints. Next up, we have Chief O'Brien. I love Chief. He is such a great character. Cole Meany does such a great job with Chief O'Brien. Going from a pretty much no-name character to being one of the best characters in Deep Space Nine. I mean, talk about an arc. It is amazing. Now, in TNG, his character isn't all that important, but I truly do love his character, and he has real growth in Deep Space Nine. So for TNG, I will just keep the Chief at a solid C, mainly because he doesn't do much other than sit in the transporter room, which I'm not bagging on him at all, but we don't see Chief do a whole lot until he gets bumped over to DS9, so that's why he gets a C. Next up, we have Lieutenant Commander Data. Now, Data is one of my favorite characters in all of Star Trek, and I do love Data. It's been a long time for the character, and there are things that have happened to the character. Now, if you haven't watched all of Star Trek, I'm not going to ruin it for you, but obviously things happen with Data, and it's sad to see. But just judging TNG as a show, I think Data is one of the best characters on the show. The growth he has throughout the entire run of TNG, and if you want to count the movie, sure, he truly develops into almost a human-like character, and you get to see a sentient being grow over 7 seasons, and that is just incredible. And of course, Data has some great moments, some great one-liners, and some great action moments thrown in there too. I think Data is a for sure A character. Now we have Commander Riker. I mean, who doesn't like Commander Riker? I don't think I've ever ran across anyone who doesn't like Riker. He is one of the coolest characters in all of Star Trek, and also one of the most loyal, one of the most badass, just overall one of the best characters in Star Trek. I know I just gushed over Data, but Riker is a true top tier character for me. I really do love Riker. He is S category elite for me. He's a leader when he needs to be. He's a friend when he needs to be. He's compassionate when he needs to be. He can be a hard ass when he needs to be. I mean, he is the full package when it comes to a person in Starfleet. I mean, he is a true commander turned captain, a true leader for the Federation and Starfleet. You can go on and on about Riker, but he is definitely S tier material. He is superior. He is awesome. He is one of the best characters in all of Star Trek, in my opinion. Next up, we have Wesley Crusher, and you know, her character, she's probably one of my least favorite doctors in all of Star Trek. I don't hate her by any means. I truly don't. I think she works really well in TNG and has a good rapport with the cast. But when you compare her to the Doctor in Voyager, Bones in the original series, Bashir in Deep Space Nine, Beverly truly kind of scrapes the bottom of the barrel for me. And it's not saying she's a bad character, but she just doesn't rank very high for me when it comes to Star Trek doctors. So I gotta place her with her son in the C level. Okay, next up we have Captain Picard. I mean, need I say more than just Captain Picard? He's probably the best captain in all Star Trek. I will argue Sisko's right there too, but he is probably the most beloved captain in all Star Trek. I will say that confidently. He is the most beloved captain in all of Star Trek, and probably one of the most respected and awarded captains in all of Starfleet within the Star Trek universe, and a man that has survived the Borg, various other confrontations over his whole Starfleet career, and he's still doing it now in modern day Picard. Captain Picard's is great. All right, Patrick Stewart's just awesome. Everything I said about Riker pretty much can go to Picard, just he's a little bit older, right? They're both great characters. Picard's awesome. There's really not much more you can say about it. He is an S tier character, no doubt in my mind. Next up, we have Geordi LaForge. Now, the chief engineer of Enterprise D, I think is an overlooked character a bit. I do. If it wasn't for him, the Enterprise probably wouldn't be flying through the air at any time because he's always fixing something. If it wasn't for Geordi, probably, I don't know, half the time, they wouldn't get out of the situations that they were in. Obviously, Geordi is a person who's blind and he's a badass still. I mean, he wears the visor. He's able to show people just because he has a disability doesn't mean he's not smart and awesome and has his badass moments. He doesn't let that stop him. And he continues to be one of the best characters in all of the Next Generation for all of 7 seasons and the 4 movies. And I really don't know what else to say about Geordi. If it wasn't for him, Enterprise D would have been screwed so many times over. Geordi gets him out of so many jams and so many situations, and he's always there to fix the problem, not really complain, does his job, and he's just like, yeah, you know what? I saved us again. I don't need that much credit. Give it to someone else. It's cool. And also, he has great moments with Data, his best friend. I mean, talk about some of the best funny moments in all of Star Trek. When Data and Geordi are together, some of the funniest stuff you can see, especially for sci-fi stuff. I mean, my goodness. But I think that's enough rambling about Geordi. I'm going to give the chief engineer an A. Now, next up, we have Guinan, the person who runs 10 Forward. Now, I really like Guinan's character. It really stinks that she kind of disappears, I believe, at kind of the beginning of season 7, and she never comes back to kind of end the show, which is really unfortunate because she's such a big part of the show when it comes to Picard and various other characters, kind of talking them through stuff. And she's really kind of another counselor on the ship in a way. And she kind of gives an insight that you usually don't get from other characters. And overall, she's just a really solid character. Now, she doesn't do much outside of 10 Forward, which is okay, kind of like how the Chief doesn't really leave the transporter room. But she is a very important character to Picard, and she does a lot for the story when it comes to the Borg, too. So that's why I gotta give Guinan a C. Now, giving her a C may seem a tad low, but when you kind of consider everything, she's important, yes, but is she as important as like a Data, a Geordi, a Riker, a Picard? I don't think so. I think she falls perfectly in the C category with the other characters. Now, next up, we have Q. Now, probably the best villain turned hero-ish character in all of Star Trek. Now, if you don't love Q, you probably don't love Star Trek because yes, Q can just drive you up the wall at times, but my God, can he create some great thoughtful moments, some great funny moments, and some great moments of just like, WTF, dude, what is going on? And if it wasn't for Q, I don't think TNG would work as well as it did. As oddly as that is, obviously he's in the pilot episode and in the finale and has a big part in influencing Picard over the 7 seasons of the show. But we get Q in Voyager and in DS9. But again, this is just a TNG video, and all the things that Q does throughout all of TNG, being there for Picard, always testing him, seeing what he can do, seeing what the Enterprise can do, seeing what Starfleet can do, I think really makes TNG a stronger show because you never know when Q is going to show up. And he's always kind of in the back of your head. And when he does, you know it's going to be an important episode of some sort. I mean, hell, he did introduce Starfleet and the Enterprise and Picard to the Borg. That in itself, I think, deserves an A. So, Mr. Q, you get an A. All right, next up we have Lore. Now Lore is a good villain throughout TNG. I never loved Lore, nor did I really ever feel a real connection to him, more of a burden. I felt more bad for Data always having to kind of deal with Lore over the run of the show, because he just always kind of kept popping up and ruining the day, or just a bunch of other stuff that kind of happens throughout the show. I know you're probably supposed to feel some compassion towards Lore, but I just never really did, and he was just an average villain. So I'm gonna give Lore a C. Now we have Worf. Lieutenant Worf in TNG. You probably love him or you hate him. I love Worf. I love everything about Worf. I love him especially in DS9. That is really where he shines to me also, just like Chief. But of course, Worf has some great moments on TNG. I mean, to see all the struggles he has as a Klingon, as a father, and being head of security on the Enterprise and so forth, and everything he does throughout the show. Talk about character development from a character who just kind of just sits in the back, just being the token Klingon, to being one of the most important characters in TNG and in DS9. It's pretty amazing. So Worf, for sure, for me, is an A character. I'll move him here in a sec. I can say without a doubt, if it was not for Worf being in TNG, I don't think you'd have the same rapport with the characters as you do, because he's just one of the core characters, same as a Data, a Geordi, a Counselor Troi, a Picard, a Riker. Like, you need Worf there. He's just part of the core, and if he isn't there, it just doesn't feel right. So that is why Worf is for sure an A character in my book. Next up, we have Tasha Yar. Her character is very difficult to rate in my opinion, because I didn't hate the character. I thought she actually had some pretty badass moments and some cool character development just in her one season that she was in, but she was just in one season. That's kind of the key. She wasn't around very long, and she got killed by a tar monster. Sorry, spoiler alert, it's been 30 years, actually more. So it just comes back to, it's really hard to rank Tasha Yar, and I think if we were able to spend more time with her, she'd been a core character just like the main cast of the show if she would have stuck around and didn't die in season 1. But on the flip side there though, if she didn't die in season 1, we probably wouldn't have the Worf we have today. So I guess we sacrificed Tasha Yar for Worf, and knowing what we get with Worf through all of TNG and DS9, I'd call that a fair sacrifice. I'd take more Worf over Tasha Yar, even though I don't mind Tasha Yar. Worf, I think, just outweighs her that much. So I gotta give Tasha Yar a C. I think she's a C. Like, again, she's not horrible, nor is she great. So that's why she's just average. If we could have spent more time with her, probably could have went to a B range, maybe even an A. But I think with her character just being for technically less than one season, she just gets a C. Now, Lieutenant Reginald Barclay. It's hard to rank him for TNG. If it was Voyager, I'd probably honestly give him, I don't know, a solid B, because I really did like his character in Voyager. He did help Voyager get back home, and his character actually had more appearances in Voyager than TNG. Can you believe that one? That was such an odd trivia I read back when I was watching Voyager, because it definitely felt like he was in TNG a lot more than he was, but he did have more appearances in Voyager than TNG. And that is why he's kind of hard to rank in TNG, because he did have some big moments within the show. And he also had some great character moments with Geordi, and how Barclay really struggles with things, and also with Counselor Troi too, and just how Barclay has social anxieties and social issues, but he's still such a brilliant man. But it was a really interesting thing to do in TNG, kind of show the different side of the Enterprise, where, you know, you're not the cool cats like Riker and Data and Geordi, you know, always being the supermen and superwomen and super Klingons of the day, you know, always solving the problems, looking cool. Where, yeah, Barclay, you know, he's a little down on his luck sometimes, and sometimes he messes things up. You know, he's not perfect. He's more of an average Joe type person compared to the rest of the cast of TNG. So I do appreciate them putting a character like that in the show, because, you know, he's just the average Joe person on TNG. But still, I think he probably is just a C character to join the rest of our C cast, because he does have good moments within the show, but none that elevate him to a B, A, or S level in my opinion. My goodness, I just ranked all of the TNG characters. I think this is a pretty solid list. I'm sure there will be plenty of people that disagree with me, But this is my ranking. I have Riker and Picard at an S level. I have Data, Geordi, Q, and Worf at an A level. Counselor Troi at a B. And coming in at our C level, we have Wesley Crusher, Chief O'Brien, Beverly Crusher, Guinan, Lore, Tasha Yar, and Lieutenant Reginald Barclay. So let me know your thoughts down below. Do you really agree with me? Do you really disagree with me? Let me know some of your rankings down in the comment section below. And while you're down there, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, that would be greatly appreciated. Until next time, guys, everyone have a great day. Thank you for watching.